We'll do a review and Likutei Sichos of Chelik Chof Aleph. This is the second Sicha for the Parshas Yisro. This is somewhat of a Rashi Sicha. The Rebbe explains the Rashi about that the Yidden, when they camped by Har Sinai, they wore Belev Echad, and the difference, the way it's in Mechilta, according to Rashi, the main chiddush is here that they were one, like with one heart, and in Rashi is the opposite, that the main chiddush is that elsewhere they were not united. It goes through different ideas what it means, whether what Rashi says in the Sifri Machloikis in the score, that according to Pshat it means literally, according to the Mechilta it means that they had different opinions. But the Rebbe goes away, the most of the Sicha goes away to explaining the Torah and the idea of Sholem and the idea of Halacha, which is one Halacha, and the number 3, 1, 2 verses 3. The Rebbe goes through a whole lot of different areas, as we will see in the Sicha. We'll go step by step. From Pasuk on the verse, this is before Matan Torah, as the Jewish people camped in front of Mount Sinai. It says Vayichan in a singular, Shom Yisrael, that Israel, the Jewish people, camped there, Neged Har, opposite the mountain, opposite the Mount Sinai. State in Mechilta, so it states in the Mechilta, Kol Mokoim Hu Oimer Vayisu Vayachanu. In all places it says they journeyed, they camped. Everything is a plural. They, meaning the Bnei Yisrael. Vayisu Vayachanu. Why? So that is because noisim b'machloikis, lechonim b'machloikis, because they were journeying. There was discord, there was a machloikis, and lechonim, and there was discord when machloikis when they camped. So it's vayisu vayachanu is it's in a plural. Abul Khan, but over here, vayichan shom Yisrael hushvu leiv echad. They were all with one heart. It came in front of Har Sinai. The Torah is being given. Over here, all hearts were equal. We're all the same. All in sync. Everybody together. The Rebbe points out now the difference the way Rashi says the same medrash. The Mechilta. The Maimer werd euch gebracht. This saying is also brought down in Pirush Rashi ala Torah, in Rashi's commentary on the Torah. In Rashi steht aber in a verkehrten Seder. In Rashi, it's in a swapped around order. The order is different. Over there in the Mechilta, we start with what took place in the other journeys, and then we say what happened in this journey. That here was a singular. And Rashi starts off the opposite, that it's this journey which is singular, as opposed to the other ones. Rashi states over in a verkehrten Seder. Rashi brings down in an opposite order. It says, Vayichan Shom Yisrael. It says they camped there in a singular, Ki ish echad b'leiv echad. So here it means like one person with one heart. Aval shar kol hachanoyos betarumas machloikos. However, all the other campings, bayachanus, everything, they're tarumas machloikos. Rashi doesn't bring down even the plural, but it just says the other ones were betarumas and machloikos. So what's the difference? That according to the Mechilta, the chiddush is that here it was with one heart, and according to Rashi, the chiddush is that elsewhere it was with tarumas machlokes. From Mechilta comes ois. From the Mechilta it comes out as the chiddush is in der chaniya, that the novelty is in this encampment. In them was kan hushvu leivechad. Over here, they all became with one heart. not in the usual way that they traveled with the escort and they camped with the escort, as by all other camps. Here was different. So that's the Chiddush. But from Rashi is mashma, but from Rashi it appears as the Chiddush is fakert, that the novelty is the other hand. In them was saying, Avo, the Shar Kol HaChanois better was do machloikis, but the others were with Tarumas and machloikis, meaning that here this is the stated way they were camped, but the other ones were with Tarumas machloikis. So what's the difference over here? Darf man verstehen, in was besteht the Svaras Achiluk zwischen der Mechilta in der on Rashi? What's the idea, the difference between the Mechilta and the Rashi? So the Rebbe is going to explain that the Mechilta doesn't really is not really understood that by Yisro Vayachnu because that they are. But how is that a proof that it's discord? By Yisro Vayachnu can be there was many people there, so it's Vayisro Vayachnu. The Chiddush is Vayichan that it's a singular. So Rebbe explains. Let's look aside. Base. The Pashtus is the Chilik verbunden. Simply, the difference is tied with Ashinu zwischen Rashi mit der Mechilta, between Rashi and the Mechilta in einem Eufen Halimut from Posik. How we learn the verse, Vishen Geret Amol, as already spoken in the past. Rebbe addressed this Rashi already and in the previous Sicha. The Mechilta, so it says like this, Mechilta lernt arush the minyan as kol mokem nisim b'machloikis, v'choyne b'machloikis. Where does he learn this? It says the Mechilta. Darfun was steht by Yisro Vayachnu Loshen Rabim, because it says they journeyed and they camped in a plural. Und der Riber besteht der Chiddush in dem Shinui, and therefore the novelty is a change. Was da steht Vayichan Loshen Yochid. The change is that it says singular here. Kan hushvulev echad. So that's the Mechilta. But Mashenkin Rashi bringt nicht the Wörter Vayisro Vayachnu. Rashi doesn't bring down because because why does it say over there in the plural Vayisro Vayachnu is very simple. That's a dimension. We're talking about a lot of people, Shvatim, the tribes, B'chulu. So that wouldn't mean anything, bringing the pasuk Vayisro Vayachnu, that there was discord. How do we see discord? How do we see Tarumas Machloikis? How do you see that just because it says plural? Plural is because there's many people there. Now Rashi learned Tarush the Minyan, but Rashi learns this idea from them. From them was their pasuk is Medai Gomad Gishdo Gufa. It's from here. In our pasuk, without bringing any other psukim, that's not the proof. Has nothing to do with that. It says the Vayachnu Vayisro, but in our pasuk it says Vayichan Shom Yisrael. The Torah says there it was singular, so that means exclusion. But elsewhere it wasn't Vayichan. The Likutei is their word Shom Ayitur Loshen. Seemingly, the word Shom is an extra language. It could have stated that they camped in the Midbar and the Jewish people rested opposite the mountain without saying they're opposite the mountain. Is the Fun Muchach. The fact that Torah adds the word Shom is evident. As Davke Shom by Der Chaniya, that's specifically there by this encampment. is given Vayichan lo sheyochid. Yishachu b'leivechad. Aval shar kol hachanoyis b'tarmus b'machloikis. But the other campings were with complaints, with discord, not bringing in any other pasuk. It's this pasuk. It says Vayichan Shom. Only there. Why there? Because elsewhere it wasn't Vayichan, but it was with Tarumas and Machloikis. That seems to tell us that here the pasuk says Vayichan, but we learn from the Shom what's elsewhere. That's Rashi's pshat. But then the question is, so how does the Mechilta prove from Vayichanu, Vayachanu, Vayisu that it means that discord? The Mechilta does bring down this pasuk of Vayisu, Vayachanu, that is plural. How does that prove Tarumas Machloikis when that is just a plural? But according to this, we have to understand what's the idea of the Mechilta. We explained now that according to Rashi, there's no proof from Vayisu Vayachnu. So what's the idea of the Mechilta? From where can we take to learn out? Because it says Vayisu Vayachnu, as noisim b'machloikis v'cheinim b'machloikis, that they were journeying with discord and they would rest with discord. How do we know that? Euch is nicht verstandig, and there's further not understood. The journey from Ramses to Sichos, which was it says Vayisu Vayachanu, was like a blink of an eye. There wasn't even a chance to be machloikis there. What does it mean, machloikis? The Mechilta Alein Zokte from Posik, Vayisu B'nei Yisrael Meramses Sukoiso. It says the B'nei Yisrael journeyed, plural. So they got from Rasu Koisoi. So it says the Mechilta Keref Ayin Nosu B'nei Yisrael Meramses Sukkos. It was like the blink of an eye that the Bnei Yisrael traveled from Ramses to Sichos. It didn't take any time. It was immediately. In order to fulfill what the pasuk says, meaning that the Eibishter says that he will carry them on eagle's wing very quickly. So to fulfill that happened instantly. But Zicher is an Nesiya in an Eifel for Keref Ayin. So for sure, if the journey is in a way like the blink of an eye, is Nitshayach given Keninian for Machlekes Chulu? It doesn't apply. How could you fit idea of Machlekes? How could it say there the language of Yisro Shalab? But the Mechilta holds that it says Vayisu weist as noisim machloikis, that they were traveling with machloikis. And the Rebbe also asked a question on Rashi. Why taka does the pasuk say Vayachnu Shom? Why do we need to know that the other one was b'machloikis? Why can't it just say without Shom, Vayichan neged dahor, that it was? Why does the Torah want to emphasize a chisoron, how the other campings were? Uli idach gison, on the other hand, is in Pirush Rashi didn't move, and also in the Rashi it's not understood. Pavos is there posik moisiv them vort shom. Why does the verse add the word vayichan shom in order to reject and to say that it's only there, but other places avul shar ashar kol achanois beturmus ubemachloikis, but all the other campings were with complaints and discord. The man of Kiminado. What does it make a difference to us over here in the Parsha of Matan Torah when we're talking about Matan Torah? So indicting to point out, to emphasize, Yisrael by Shar Kol HaChanoyos, about the shame of the Jewish people by all other campings that they were with Tarumas and Machloikis. So we have one kasha that the Rebbe asks on the Mechilta. Why does the Mechilta? How does he know that it means that there was Machloikis Tarumas? And the question on the Rashi is, why is it important for us to know that only there was but Shar Chanois was with Machloikis. Why does the pasuk tell us this shame of the Yidden? It wasn't a gate to Matan Torah. So the Rebbe makes first a distinction between how we understand what it means, Tarumas and Machloikis, that according to Rashi, it's literal, it means discord, complaints. According to Rashi, even the discord that took place, but it stopped when it comes to Torah. Torah brings in a higher level. So it's important to know because the all the disagreements, but in the Torah, it makes shalom, as the Rebbe will explain. But according to the Mechilta, it doesn't mean really discord in the sense that there was fighting or things like that. It means there was different opinions. So that's accepted. That's a natural outcome when we talk about many people. We're not saying, according to the Mechilta, that there was some sort of fights over here. Basically, we're saying all other was Vayisru. This was the normal. The normal when there's many people while they're journeying, everybody has their opinion. So that's normal. But the Mechilta says when they came to Har Sinai, it's a new normal. Now it's Hushvu Echad. So according to Rashi, even the fight stopped. According to the Mechilta, the opinion stopped. Everybody, Torah brings in the level of Shalom, as the Rebbe will explain in the following Oisius in the Sichos. Gimel. The Nekudas in the point of the explanation in this is Pirush Rashi is doch al derech hapshat. Rashi's commentary is in the path of the simple meaning. And therefore, when the Rashi zogt kol hachanoyis b'tarumas v'machloikis, when Rashi says the campings war with arguments, with machloikis, discord, meint der inyan von tarumas v'machloikis in Pashtun Zin. Rashi means complaints and discord in the simple meaning, krigerai, people fighting with each other. One of them is von Loshen Vayisru Vayachnu Nitoken Hechlech, and there's actually no evidence from Vayisru Vayachnu that there is fighting. There's no Hechlech. Vafilu nit mashmoes, and there's not even an apparent understanding as Sha'ar Kol HaChanois B'Terumas U'Machloikis, that all the other ones were with Terumas U'Machloikis in the literal sense. Rashi cannot learn Tarumas Machloikis from the fact that it says Vayisru Vayachanu. Rashi doesn't bring the pub because all this does not tell us anything about real arguments and real fights, which according to Rashi, that's what took place over there. But we don't know that from the pasuk. While in Loshen Rabim is bepashtus netoken ondai, because the fact that it's in a plural, there is no hint, there is no point, it doesn't point of Kriegerei zwischen Eden, doesn't point to any fighting amongst the Eden, Keniske Lil, as we said before. Dafke der Fun, but it's specifically from the fact, but the Pasuk Doi is Medayik, that here the Pasuk emphasizes and says, Vayichan Shom Yisro Negador, that Yisro camped there Negador. Learn we learn a novelty as dafke by der Chania sein Eden given ki ish echod belev echod. Dafke in this camping they were like one person with one heart. Avo shar kol hachanoyes betarumus u'machloikes kinal, but the rest of the campings were with complaints, with discord, as we said before. That's Rashi's approach, because according to Rashi, discord, machloikis, and complaints means literally. So we can't learn it out from the plural because there's no hint that plural doesn't mean that there was any disagreement over that. The Mechilta, Taruma is machloika means something else. Mashenkin loit der Mechilta as opposed to according to the Mechilta, is der Pirush von Machloikes, the meaning of the word Machloikes, nicht in dem Sinn von Kriegensach. It's not in the meaning, understanding that they're fighting. Hepech HaSholom, which is opposite. It's not fighting versus peace. Nor Hepech von Leiv Echad. It's not with one heart. Not fighting, but not with one heart. Chilukei deis, meaning there is difference of opinions. About as in the same Shabbos, since people's hearts are not, people's minds are not the same, is when Rabim Darfun Tonaninya, when there's a many that needs to do something, Muzun al Piteva Oifkumen Parshidin Adei. So then naturally there has to be various opinions. Vidostuton, how to do this, okay, it's similar. There is a plural there. When the far stayed by Allah Chanoyes Unisiyas, and that's why by all the campings and all the journeys, it says by Yisro Vayachano. It says they camped, they journeyed and they camped. But by Yadinisiya Vechaniyas and given Chilukei deis Vishnidin, because in all the heart wasn't the same, there were difference of opinions amongst the Yid. And the Rebbe adds in the brackets, Obefrat, Apiha Yadua, Bepnimi Senyonim, especially as it's known in the inner matter of things. As the Membeis Masois Bamidbor, that these 42 journeys in the desert, not just 42, those are different levels. Zayin Merambes of Membeis Madreges Va'aliyas and Avodas Hashem. They hint and they point to 42 steps and elevations in the service of Hashem. So when we talk about elevations 42 times, not everybody is elevated on the same level. So there is distinctions there between every Jew and everybody else. By Yedrun is the Aliyah Umasa, by each one, that elevation, that journey, the Masois, Loid Zayin Dargin Avodas Hashem, according to their step, their level in the service of Hashem, Loid Zayin, according to his Levavcha, his heart, Nafshecha, Moedecha, that's what we say, Levavcha, Nafshecha, Moedecha, each individual according to their level. So, there is different, there is Masei, there is journeys, there's camps, there's differences by each one. But the difference is Nordo, Bader Chaniya for Matan Torah. But here, when we come to the camping of Matan Torah, is given a Chiddush. Over here, there was a novelty. By Yichan Shom Yisrael, Neged Ahor, Ushvul. Over here, the Yisrael camped in front of the mountain. They were like with one heart. Stay in the Neged Ahor. As they were standing opposite the mountain to receive the Torah, it's now the heart is become one. It's novelty. Man, always when there is people, there's different minds and different hearts, but here is Lev Echad. Ein und derselbe Lev, not Lev. The same Lev by all Yidden. I feel the need Levav. Levavcha is because they're also talking about the Nefesh HaBahamis, now the Yitzhahara. But here it's Lev, not even within the person. There's no two parts to him. There's just the Lev. About Torah, was tut oiv dem sholem, because Torah, which accomplishes this sholem b'shleimus, complete sholem, had gepoilt an agdus gemurat tzivishun eden, that impacted and made a complete unity amongst Yidden. Biz as seinen bottles the Chilukei deis, until the differences of opinion cease. There's no longer difference of opinion. It's Leiv Echad, everybody together. That is what the Torah accomplished. So now, why does it say even they work Harif Ayin? It says Vayisu still, because even though it was quickly, but they still had different hearts. They think Leiv Echad only took place when Neged Ahor. When der Mit ist verstandig, And with this we understand, by their Ramses why by the journey from Ramses to Sukkot state by Yisro Loshon Rab. So over there it says by Yisro in the plural. But Afal Pi as di Nisiyam. Although that journey was is given clarifying, which was instantly like the blink of an eye, is given in an oifun from kulam ke'echad, it was all together. There's no chance, but from deswegen kann man nicht sagen, der Reufloschen Jochen, you still can't call it singular. As bei sie seinen nicht gewenke Likutei is that there was no difference of opinion mitzad their seichel v'das in their intellect and knowledge, that there was still a difference of opinion, even though they went together, clarifying. Azach was hat sich aufgetan, dafke durch teure negedor. That should be no difference of opinion. Everybody's in agreement. That is accomplished specifically through Torah, neged ahar, when they faced the mountain. Hushvu kulam leiv echad kinal. They were all became equal with one heart, as mentioned before. And now this also explains what the Rebbe asked, why does Rashi or why does the Pasuk have to say Shom? Because the Torah is telling you what happened by Matan Torah. Matan Torah was able to bring everybody, unite everybody. Shom Yisrael. That over there was his matgish that emphasizes us by the andere Chanoyis is not given a matzah for levechot. That emphasizes that in the other journeys it was not a standing a situation from one heart, because that's what Torah has accomplished now. So we need to say that Torah makes it into one heart. So the other ones wasn't like that. Rashi comes further, not only people have difference of opinions, Rashi learns even people who actually fight each other, they too became united. And Rashi zokt nochmer. And Rashi goes even further. As Torah to oif achdus, that Torah accomplishes unity, oichin an ord was in im is faran, nit nor chilukei, also in a place where there is not just differences of opinion, nor tarumes umachloikis. There is argument and discord, me'ein tarumes kipshute, which means similar to real complaints. So even in a place like that, Vayichan Shom Yisrael. So still Yisrael, over there, Yisrael got together. Everywhere else, there was literally tarumas, similar to real tarumas, but over here, the pasuk says this is accomplishes Torah that everybody is together, even if before there was tarumas. Okay, this explains this piece in the Mechilta and the Rashi, but now the Rebbe is going to explain what is this idea of the Sholem, the Leivechod, in the level of Torah, because in Torah we also find seemingly the level that there's different opinions in Torah. What does it mean? How is Torah only one? And the Rebbe explains now the idea of Shlishi, that there's the number one when there is no opposition, then there is two, which shows that there is opposition. There's three, which is the decision making, which takes in, which is a combination of one and two together. It's not negating either one. Let's look on the side. Dalet. So verstehen klarer the Meile von Torah, in order to better, more clearly understand the advantage of Torah, was davke zitu toiv de Meile von Hushvu leiv echad. Its Torah is what accomplishes a disadvantage that all the hearts became together. The lechaira, because it would seem that even in Torah, euch in Torah gefindt man dem inyan also in Torah we find this idea from the Ribui Deis, from many different opinions. Biz, to the extent as Chazal Zogan, our sages of blessed memory, tell, as loinit not Torah chatuchim, the words of Torah have not been cut and said this is the way it is. Alakol davar chulu, but in every item of Torah there's memtes panim tohir. There's 49 faces, possibilities to say it should be tohir. Memtes ponim tome, and there's 49 faces to say that it's tome, which means inherently Torah is mechayiv deis chalukas. Torah has to have different opinions, different views. Nor zeizainen alle, but all these different views, elu ve'elu, divrei Elokim chaim, they're still the words of the living God, but there's different opinions. So how are we saying over here, as mitzad Torah veren bottle di chilukei deis, that because of Torah the opinions become negated, there's no more differences, bizas hushvulei vecha, they're all in one heart. When we find in Torah, it's different. Now, we know the halacha is only one. But knowing the halacha is one doesn't mean that the opinion ceased to exist. It means l'maisa you can only do like one, but it's still the other opinions are still opinions. You can't do like two opinions, so therefore there's only one halacha. So even in halacha, afal piyaz the halacha is nor v'ein deya, even though the law, the ruling, is only like one opinion. And after the law has been ruled, that everybody must follow the opinion, the halacha. But still, that doesn't mean that there's no other opinions, that everybody agrees. Meintes aber nit. This, however, does not mean, l'chayra, seemingly, as the midvern bottle dich lukedeis, that by making the ruling, all the differences of opinion cease. What it means is, as is nor, was in maise bepoil, in the practical action, we all conduct themselves the same. But from the logic perspective, like the they remain in disagreement one with the other. It would seem so. So how do we say, as mitzat Torah is hushvu, how do we say that Torah makes it one heart? When we say one heart, doesn't mean everybody's doing the same thing. Doesn't mean that nit nor vert an achdus in asiya. Not only is there a united in the actual doing, nor as the achdus is oich mitzad dem leiv, but the unity is also in the heart. The feeling of the person feels that we're all the same, not just that we do the same thing. So how do we understand the unity of Torah that influences that the heart should be one? And that we'll understand from the number 3, because the Pasuk and the Chazal make a mention and emphasis that it was number 3. That free or magdim zayin. So first we need to introduce was the Pasuk is madgish, that the Pasuk emphasizes over here. When does the unity came place? As der vayichan shom Yisro neged hahor. This, that there Yid neged hahor were camped. Vayichan lochshen yochid. So it's overgetan. When was that accomplished? B'chodesh hashlishi litzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. On the 3rd month, when the Yidden left Mitzrayim, was their fun is verstanding. From this we understand, because the Torah introduces this b'chodesh hashlishi, the 3rd month, that from there comes Vayichan. We understand as der Vayichan is verbunden mit der Meile von Mispar Shlishi, that this singular camping is tied with the advantage of the number 3, B'chodesh HaShlishi. And we find in our sages, the Chazal Zogen, Zainen Matkish, our sages of blessed memory say, and they emphasize B'negeya to Torah in Algemein, when they talk generally about Torah, they say that Brich Rachmona, blessed is the merciful one, Hashem, the Yohav, Urion Klisoi, who's given a Torah that is tripled, Torah Nevim Ksuvim, La'am Klisa, to a nation that has 3 Kohanim Levim Yisraelim, Al-Yidei Klisoi, through the third one, Moshe, Aaron, Miriam, and Moshe, the Yom Klisoi, on the third day, B'yarchat Klisoi, Vahi B'yom HaShlishi, the Pasuk says, the Eibster came down, and it was done in B'chodesh HaShlishi, B'yarchat Klisoi. Those was Torah is gegeben geworden B'chodesh HaShlishi. The fact that the Torah was given on the third month, Tafke, is weil Torah is verbunden mit Mispar Shlishi, is because Torah is tied to the number Shlishi. So, 1 seems to be more unity than 3. Why is the Torah given 3 if we want to emphasize 1? The L'cheira is the inyan from Vayichan, the idea of Vayichan, Loshen Yochid, that we say, Ki ish echot b'leiv echot farbundu mit echot. Seems like it's more tied to the level of 1, which would be Chodesh HaRishon, which would be the first month. Was weist auf Achdus. That shows on unity, it's 1. Aderech we may give in by the Sheishes Yimei Bereishis, similar to that which we find in the 6 days of creation, as the Yom HaRishon wird angerufen Yom Echad. It's different. It says not Yom Rishon, like Yom Sheni Shlishi, but it says Yom Echad. Why Yom Echad? HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yochid B'Ilomei. So Chazal tell us because Hashem was Yochid Echad. He was only in his world. There was nothing else created yet in the Yom HaRishon. Vos farashayches hot Agdus von Vayichan. But what is the connection between unity, Vayichan, like with one heart, to Chodesh HaShlishi, to the number month 3? A mispar was versteht for Ribu v'Yischalchus. It's a number that consists of many. There's 3 there, and there is separation. How does that help the How does that help Vayichan? And the Rebbe Nosei is going to explain how this whole difference between, while number 1 is singular, but it doesn't bring in the other, it's just only. And 3 takes the 1 and 2 and brings them together. We'll see inside. Hey, is the bigger in the explanation of this? Der chilik in the remes hatoichen zwischen the misporim, the difference in the hint of the idea, the toichen, the content between the numbers echod, sheni, and shlishi, 1, 2, and 3 is echod is madgish. The number 1 emphasize as is do melechatchila nor ein zach. To begin with, there's only one thing. There's echod. Okay, Loshen Chazal Hanal, as the language of our sages of blessed memory mentioned before, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yochid Be'Elomei, the Eibishter is the only one in his world. Sheni, the second vice of his Chalkus, that points to division. Hepechachus, the opposite of unity, it's division. Und der Öftu von Shlishi, the novelty, what is 3, is was is ma'ached dishnayim, that he unites the 2. Well, derech maimer Chazal, similar to what we say, the saying of our sages of blessed memory. You have shnei isuvim, you have 2 verses, hamachechishim zeh who contradict one another. Ad sheyavo yakos v'ashlishi, until the 3rd verse, the number 3, v'yachriya b'neihem, and that is the deciding between the two contradictory verses. In them klal, in this rule that two psukim that contradict, the third one decides, is mudgash adavar v'hifucha, it's emphasize a matter and the opposite. From Eizait, on one hand, is Torah's emes made, Torah, which is true, testifies, ados zayin and nit nor verschiedene ksubim, says these are not just different psukim, these are contradictory psukim. Aderech Likutei hanal, which is similar to difference of opinion, so there's different psukim. These are verses that contradict. It's almost like tarumish machloikis. It's complaints, it's discord. They're disagreeing. Dos heis, what does that mean? It says nit nor fashidener hate. It's not just different, or that an oiben oifike stira, or a superficial contradiction from ein pasuk from zweiten, from one verse over the second. Und oiben vet haraven, and if you will put effort in the zwei kesuvim gufa, in these two verses themselves, you're going to work it out. But you will be able to straighten it out between these two psukim to what they mean, without using the help of a third pasuk, just these two psukim alone. That's not when we're saying makhishin, and they themselves cannot be sorted out. There's no way of reconciling these two psukim. You need a third pasuk. Lulei dem kosuv hashlishi, had it not been for this third pasuk, so then truthfully they contradict each other. So that's on one hand. But on the other hand, is there oiftu for them kosuv hashlishi? What is the novelty? What does he accomplish? The third pasuk, as it is machariya beineim, he decides between them. What does it mean to decide, to be machriya? Doesn't mean to negate one opinion over the other one. What is the true decision making? Does nicht as a paskin wie einer und is schöler dem zweiten, that you rule like one and you reject the other one. Nor as beide kisuvim, but both verses was eine mitzad atzma makrishim zeh, which on their own contradict each other. Stimmen. Now they fit. Zusammen according to the decision making of the third pasuk, those two psukim are no longer contradictory, but they fit. This is the concept of the third pasuk. Well, that says the inyan from halacha kedivre hamachriya. We say the law is like the deciding factor. Was the tam the refiz? What is the reason why we rule like the one who is machriya? The decision of this third opinion is nicht der mit, is not with the fact that he's maskim la'achas mibeis hadeyas, that it agrees to one of the two opinions. Nor durch them was his svore is, but through the fact that the idea of the machriya is koilel beis hadeyas, it includes both opinions. Ushneim maskimim l'das hamachriya, and they both agree, they go along with the decision making of this third pasuk, or the person, or the idea that is machriya. The Rebbe now will explain that even in areas of Torah which it doesn't manifest itself clearly, there's two contradiction, and then there's a hachroa, there's a deciding factor. But all of Torah is really shlishi, is the idea of shalom, is that idea of achra, as the Rebbe will explain. Both. Bald as Chazal verbinden genau Teure Bechlau mit Mispar von Shlishi, since our sages, a blessed memory, tie, as we said earlier, Torah in general with the number 3. Is davon verstandig. So from this we understand as klolus inyan ha-Torah is bedugmas ha-inyan from Shlishi ha-Machriya. That the Torah in generally is similar of the idea of the third party, which is Machriya. That's a general concept in Torah. This haste. What we're trying to say is that afilu in the erter wo der psak haloche von Torah is begilui nit in anoifun von achra, even if it's in a open way, we don't see it as being deciding or nor beoifel, but rather it's in a way as it is shoylel disvora, that it rejects the idea from the zweiter day, from the other opinion. So what you see is a rejection, not a hachroa, as it is said. Is this ober ba'amitis ubepnimis, but in truthfully and in the inner, an inyan from hachroa. It is also an inyan of hachroa, of a decision. By la'achrei shenifseka ha'aloches, because after the law has been ruled, Zainen the deis ha-chaylekis, the opinions that disagree, maskim to their halacha, they agree to the law, not only as it relates to the action in poil, but also logically, it makes sense to them as the halacha. Azoi hazezvert asholim amiti, to extend that it becomes a true peace zwischen the aladeyas, between all the opinions. So basically, even if we don't see the process of achro, it is achro, because once there is a halacha ruling, everybody agrees also in the view, they fit their view that it fits with halacha. Das ist der koyach von Torah. This is the power of Torah. Hashem oiz lama yitain. Hashem gives the strength to his people. The Torah Hashem yivorech hasam b'sholem. Hashem blesses them with peace. The sholem. Früher is faran the shakel v'tari in dem inyan shebetorah. Beginning, there is the give and take in the idea of Torah. Svaris lakan or svaris lakan. There is ideas on this side and these on this side. Shas ober mikum tzu. At the time, however, when you reach to the achro v'achlot von Torah, to the decision and the finality of the Torah's ruling, the ena from these svaras, as one of the ideas which is ruled like that, was the zu darf men haben dem inyan ha'ois. That's what you need, Hashem ois, to number the force. You need the teikev ha'achlota. You need the force in the decision making. To milchama midim entities, in order to wage war against the various tilting in the shaklevatari, in the give and take. And then to decide like one way, the ois, you need the ois in Torah. So Hashem ois lami yitain, verder noch sholem, then becomes peace. As Allah day is that all opinions zayin the noch meide to the halacha, they all agree to the law mit zeir ganzer mitzias, with their whole existence. This as vert hasholem amiti benaim, to the extent it becomes a true peace amongst them. Dermit, with this idea, with this concept, Yumtuk der Sipur Chazal, we will sweeten the story of our sages' as blessed memory. They tell us, as ven loit Rabbi Yehoshua's cheshben hakvius, according to the calculation of Rabbi Yeshua, the way it came out according to his calculation, the setup of Yom Kippurim gedaft nikva werden, they should set, Yom Kippur should be set nit in them tog was Rabbi Gamliel had given, not on the day that was said by Rabbi Gamliel, who was the Nasi. And Rabbi Yeshua thought differently. Ot Rabbi Gamliel gehesen Rabbi Yeshua kumen to him b'makli b'me'oisov, that he instructed him to come to him with his stick and with his money. The Yom HaKippurim shechal is b'cheshboncha, on the Yom Kippur that is in your cheshbon, I want you to come to violate your Yom Kippur by coming to me with your stick and your money. And Rabbi Yeshua doesn't get on the poil. Rabbi Yeshua actually did so. Why was it necessary for him to come with his stick and with his money to do that, to show that even external parts, everything of Rabbi Yeshua agrees and goes along with Rabbi Gamliel's, who is the Nasi, who has the final authority and the final say, and the halacha. In plug is nit glati. Similarly, this is not so smooth. Rabbi Yeshua zol bavaisen. As it would be Rabbi Gamliel, in order for Rabbi Yeshua to show that he does as Rabbi Gamliel ruled, well, given genug, it would have been sufficient when Rabbi Yeshua vote, when Rabbi Yeshua would in Tog versus Chal Yom HaKippurim Lo Zayin Cheshbon, on the day in which Yom Kippur falls out, according to his calculation, Stam gegangen from Mokum Meshobe Kin Yavne. Just by walking from the place where he lives to Yavne, where Rabbi Gamliel was more than a tchum Shabbos, tchum Yom Tov. More than you can't walk that in Yom Kippur. This is given maybe a tchum, which you wouldn't be allowed to walk there. That should be sufficient. So why would this necessary for him to come? The makloi with his stick and oich, and also with his money. Einer from the Biurim in them is one of the explanation of this is a stick is something outside you, but at least you lean on it. Money is totally outside you. Everything of Rabbi Yeshua is needed to show on every part that the halacha goes along with Rabbi Gamliel. Einer from the Biurim in them is one of the explanation this is. Der mit hat gedarft bewiesen werden. This needed to show wie sein Ton wie das Rabbi Gamliel, as the fact that he's doing it as the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel is nicht stam mit Kabbalah Soil. It's not just plain by accepting the yoke. Aber bis Sichloi halt anders, but logically he disagrees. Nor kor kule, but his entirety, euch bis Sichloi, also in his logic, hat zu ihm meidig when he agreed to Rabbi Gamliel. Afal P as Fried is by that previously it was by him according to the intellect of Torah as Yom Kippurim Dav Zayin nit in them Tog welcome the Rabbi Gamliel Kavegna. So he logically disagreed. He thought it's not the day that Rabbi Gamliel set it up that Rabbi Gamliel was wrong. Is over not them that hurt. But after he heard as the aloch is with Rabbi Gamliel, that the law remains as Rabbi Gamliel, so it also made sense to him in his understanding and his grasp. Und the beginner thereof is, what is the test to show that he actually logically changed his mind and agrees with Rabbi Gamliel? As it is gekumen oich b'maklei u'b'ma'oisov, that he came also with his stick and with the money. In them Zetman over here you see as the psak halacha, that this halachic ruling hadurchgenommen sein ganze metzias, it penetrated his entire existence. Mit alle seine praten, with all of his details. Bis afilu dvorim chitzonim legamri, that even items are totally external. These are external parts, they're outside of the person. Both the stick, the money, that's not the person himself. And also, and not only, and not even his stick, because stick was his was helped arais and alichas adam, that's at least, it's external, but it still helps the going of the person. But even his money, which is entirely outside of the person, also that went along with Rabbi Yishua and Yavne, meaning that everything of him agreed wholeheartedly. How does that happen? That's the advantage of Torah. That Torah goes beyond a regular intellect. A regular intellect just tells you an idea, but it doesn't tell you that you have to do anything. It has nothing to do with what you do. You just know. Torah is an idea which comes with a command to do what you understand. Zion, declaring in them. What is the explanation? Although Torah is the idea that it is Chochmah and Seichel, wisdom, understanding, as the Pasuk says, Ki hi chochmaschem ubinaschem. The Torah is your wisdom and understanding. Is ober farana maile miyuchedes in Torah. There is a special advantage in Torah. Was chochma als chochma hotas nit. Chochma, just being chochma, does not happen. B'lashon Chazal, to use the language of our sages of blessed memory, yesh chochma bagoyim tamin. Yesh Torah bagoyim al tamin. If you're going to say that there exists chochma amongst the nations, believe. But to say that they have Torah, then don't believe. Was l'chayre is nit verstandig. L'chayre is not understood. Since there is wisdom bagoyim, heißt es doch, as the Meile von Torah was is nito bagoyim, so why is there no Torah bagoyim? Is nit in the meaning of Chochma. It's not Chochma, because Chochma they have. And then you say, yes, Torah bagoyim, they don't have. Why don't they have Torah? So it's not the Chochma. And was mean the Pasuk? So what does the Pasuk mean? As Torah hi chochmaschem ubinaschem. That Torah is your chochma bin aleinei ha'amim, for the eyes of the nations. But because we say they have chochma and they don't have Torah, so how is Torah chochma? No, the pshat therefore is, but the meaning, the explanation is that mitzad der meile fun Torah, that because of the advantage of Torah, was his nito bagoyim, because Torah bagoyim al tamin, only a yid has Torah. That part is do an ilu oich in der chochma shebe Torah. There is also an advantage, an elevation in the level of chochma of Torah. Was chochma hodus nit mitzad atzma, that chochma doesn't have it on its own. So while the goyim have chochma, but they don't have that extra advantage in chochma which Torah gives it. The riber is Torah chochmaschem. Torah becomes your ayer spezielle chochma. It's your special chochma. Ubinaschem, and your understanding leinei ha'amim. What is it about the Torah's chochma that is on a higher level than the regular chochma? The Yisro from Torah of chochma is the advantage from Torah over chochma. Is Torah is meloshon hara. Torah is from the language of a lesson. It's an instruction. Torah, which is Torah's emes, Torah, which is the true Torah, is nit blois masbir dem emes from yeder zach. Doesn't just explain the truth of every matter. Nor Torah bringt euch arois dem bechein, also brings up, so what? From what you know, what does it mean? What's the resolution of this? What is the outcome? The conclusion and the lesson in action, practical. As der Odom musich führen ba'ofen mesuyum, that a person needs to conduct himself in a specific way. That is the idea of Torah. Torah means a lesson. Mashenkin chochma, what you're just talking about, wisdom, ideas, git nit kein herois to mention. That doesn't give lessons to the person. Chochma learn nor a mention. What chochma teaches a person as oiber wird sich führen beofen mesuyim. if you will conduct yourself in a specific way, this is what the results will be. But the hastim aber nicht wie zu führen sich, but the Chochmah doesn't tell him how to conduct himself. It just tells you what happens out of context. The dogmas in Chochmas HaRefuah. Say, for example, in the science, the wisdom of medicine. Chochmas HaRefuah, Zokta mentioned, the wisdom of medicine says to a person, as oib sein hanhoga vet sein ba'ofen kach, if he will conduct himself in such a way, the results will be such and such. That's what it tells him. It informs the person. Aber sie is nicht mechayev dimension sefirin sich hazoi, but it does not obligate the person that he should follow what he understands. It just tells him what happens, but not that wisdom doesn't say do. Oh no, way. If the person chooses, if he wants to, can there sein achoyvel ba'atzma, he can hurt himself. Mashenkin Torah gita hayro, Torah gives a lesson. It's an instruction. As mentor nit sein in choyvel ba'atzma, you're not allowed to hurt yourself. High time for that reason is Torah chochmaschem ubinaschem le'enei ha'amin. That's why Torah is your wisdom and understanding in the eyes of the nations. Valenendik an inyan, because when you learn a subject, umwissendik b'shas maisa, and you know at the time that you're studying, as from the shakle v'tari, from the give and take, muza riskumen ahiro psak din l'maisa, you must come out with a lesson and a ruling of the law in practical in action, is men sich maimik in damit hayigi. You say that then you more deeply go with an extra effort. Dafke demel is men oimed alamitis hadover. Only then you can really get to the truth of this matter. And the river is the chokhmah from Torah. And that's why the wisdom of Torah was is a chokhmah, was the hero is a tale from Ir Mitzias. So therefore, when we talk about the wisdom of Torah, that part of that it's a Torah, that you need a lesson, that becomes a part of the chokhmah of Torah. Verbunden mit God and under Eimek Chokhmah Stam, this has connected to an entirely deeper level of understanding than any general chokhmah. That's the level of chokhmah schem, the level that it comes with the lessons, and therefore you make sure to really get down to the depth because it impacts the actual action. The Rebbe is going to explain in Ois Ches that the actual reason between why does Torah have that special Maisa bepoil that is connected the bechein to the chokhmah is because Torah is emes, and emes has no boundaries, as the Rebbe will explain. It penetrates; it goes everywhere. Ches, the siba for the mechiluk hanal, the difference for the distinction, the difference between Torah and chokhmah, between Torah and chokhmah, is those verse Torah is chokhmah se'ritzoyne shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Torah is the wisdom and the will of Hashem. Vazi is emes la'amita, which is the truth of the truth. Umidas ha'emes is inyonu vazi is mavriach min hakotza lakotza. The measure of truth idea is that it goes from one end to the other end. It goes through every aspect. Zimuz zayin ois gehalten umetun. It must be fitting and making sense in everywhere, in alle madreges, in all steps from the river, and therefore, when Torah is megala the emes von azach, when Torah reveals the truth of a matter, kennes nit bleibum bagrenetz zum seichel ha'odam, it cannot remain limited to the intellect of the person. As versteht, as der Inyan is as he understands that is this idea is such. Aber in Meise Bepoil führt sich in an andere Öfen, but in actual action, he should conduct himself differently. Nur es nimmt ihn durch im Ganzen, it penetrates, it goes through the totally, bis in Meise, until it reaches action. Not only until the main is the action. High timer is looking. For that reason, there's also differences in the Weg, wie man kommt zu der Chochmas von Torah. How is the approach? How does one really get the wisdom of Torah? And legabe relative andere Chochmas, how you reach other wisdoms. Umehem kemaimer chazal, and of them, as the saying of our sages, we find that the reason why Hillel has the halacha set as Beis Hillel, because they were easy to get along with, and they would accept their shame. And what does that got to do with Chachma? Why should the halacha? We're talking about intellectually here. There's a different approach to the level of reaching the level of Torah. So the Chazal say, as the Tam Favosmot Keveg when the halacha, the Beis Hillel, unit Beis Shammai. Why was the halacha decided as Beis Hillel and not the Beis Shammai? Aval Pias Beis Shammai Mechadid, even though Beis Shammai were sharper. And the reason is Mipnei Shenoichin Va'aluvim Hoyu. They were easygoing and they were ashamed. So, meaning that it was the level of humility that got them to be the halacha like them. But seemingly doesn't really fit. The inyan from kviyas halacha, the idea of setting up what the law is shaykh to them, was is mechuded yeser, connects to the one who's sharper. Un aggressor bar seichel, and he has a greater intellect. Was ken der far verstehen da halacha besser and tiefer, who's therefore, because he has a better mind, sharper, he can understand the law better and deeper. But the halacha gedarf sein wie Beis Shammai was mechadedit face, so the halacha should have been like Beis Shammai, who are sharper. Nor that inyan in them, but the idea in this is kedei zu der Griechen dem emes la'amitei from Torah, in order to reach the truth of Torah, but thus is der inyan from halacha. The halacha, that's the ultimate truth. Is not maspik der inyan from seichel alone. It's not sufficient just intellect. Weil seichel hat in sich netias von chesed und gvura chula. Seichel has tilting of chesed and gvura, etc. Kiyudua, as it's known, ados was Beis Hillel seinen bechlal mekel. This, that Beis Hillel generally are lenient, and Beis Shammai machmir, Beis Shammai is more strict, is while Beis Hillel is from chesed, Beis Hillel is from chesed, and Beis Shammai is from gevura, from the stringency. Und der Riber, and therefore, afal pi as die Eigenschaft von Seichel, even though the characteristic of Seichel is zu suchen und verstehen dem Emes von der Sache, is to search and understand the truth of a matter, was der Fall kann sich a Mensch oistam. That's why a person can sort of undress himself in seinen Netias from his natural tiltings, verstehen anders, and to understand differently, this is mechayiv der kav, than the line of chain of thought which would normally obligate him to welchen at his noite beteva to which he is naturally bornly, that he would lean to, but he could get out of that and do differently, such as we find that sometimes Beis Shammai is lenient and Beis Hillel will be stringent. From deswegen verbleibt der Seichel in sein Zier, yet the intellect remains in its form, and therefore he's not always able to take dem emes lamite von den dvar muskel, the truth of the idea understood via it is as it is. Seichel alone can sometimes not really get to the total truth. But b'shas mahodem inyan habitl, when you have the idea of subjugation, was durch dem geht man arois von der eigener Metzias unetias, and that way you go out of your own existence and your own tilting. Ken die shakle vetaria von seichel ha'odom der geregen dem emes lamite. So then the give and take of the human intellect is able to reach the truth of the truth. Der Fad is the halacha. That's why the halacha shinyon emes lamite, because the halacha is the truth of the truth. Nikva gevarim besilo. That's why it was said like besilo, because they had the level, the subjugation. They can go out from their mitzias and give the real ruling, that inyan habitl, because they had the idea of the bitl. And the Rebbe connects this now with the beginning of the Shas and the end, which starts with Me'emosai, with the level of bitl, Emosai, and ends with halachas. Thus, that inyan hanal is merumas. The above idea is also hinted in Dembos Hascholas Hashas. The beginning of the Talmud is with their Mishnah. It starts with the Mishnah Me'emosai kodim Shema. When do we read the Shema? Und der Siyum Hashas, and the end of the Talmud is mit the Maimer, called Hashem Halachas B'chol Yom Kulu, anyone who learns laws every day, halachas. The Siyum Hashas is mit Inyan from Limud halachas. The conclusion of the Shas is with the idea of learning halachas. While the Tachlis from Shakla V'Tariyah from Torah is, because the ultimate goal of Torah is La Sukish Maitza Libad Hilchasa, is to conclude the discussion. It should be according to the halacha. So the Greichen de Maskona Halacha Lemaisa, to reach the conclusion and the law in actuality. While Dafke in them, the Riktzicha is Begilu, because it's specifically in the Maisa, how to do things, expresses itself openly, Begilui, that Emes Lamita from Torah, the truth of Torah. Und Kidei, as the Shakel of Italia from Torah, so bring in Odem Siyim, in order for the discussion, the give and take of Torah should bring to that concluding halachas, from kol hashayna halachas, to learn halachas. Muzman hoben the hagadama v'haschola from kriyas Shema. We need to have the introduction and the beginning of reading the Shema. Was inyon is kabolas oil malchus shemayim. Shema is, idea of Shema is accepting the yoke of the heavenly kingdom. Because of the fear and subjugation to the will of the Supreme, for accepting the yoke of the heavenly kingdom, is limud. The introduction is the Shema, is the Yiran Bittul. So then when he learns with Bittul the Kabbalah, it's with subjugation and accepting the yoke. Erveis azinim is tolui. He knows that it hinges on him. Whether the Jew who will follow his ruling of the halacha will do according to the will of the Supreme, of Hashem's will, or the or the opposite. Was sad them, because of this, knowing that what he decides is doing Hashem's will or not, he stands in a fear and an awe to to have intent to direct and come up with the correct will of the above, the Supreme. Und durch dem, was der Odom is mevatel sein Metzias, and through the fact that the person negates his existence, wird sein Seichel kli zum Emes Lamita. Then his intellect becomes a vessel to the truth of the truth from Torah, und his mekaben el ha'alocha, and then he correctly comes up with the right halacha. So now the Rebbe explains that Torah brings the real peace. Yud al pizevet menech verstehen. Based on this, we'll also understand Favos Torah tut oif asholim amiti zwischen the cholkim. Why Torah accomplishes a true peace amongst the disagreeing. Bis as is an alle moide until they all agree, oich besichlam, also in their intellect, zu psak din, to the ruling of the halacha. Ben es redt sich wegen Likutei in an inyan. When you are discussing about difference of opinion in a matter, was wird genommen bloß mit seichel allein, which is only taken with intellect, bleiben die Likutei, then the difference of opinions remain. While in olam haseichel, because in the world of intellect, zayne faran netias lakan lakan, there is movement to here and to there. Azoyas beide deis homen an ort, so that both opinions have space. Oich chochma, also chochma was yesh bagoyim, which the goyim have versteht, understands that much they understand that you can't do. In actuality, you have to do one way. Because you can't allow for a situation for Isha Yosher Bein of Yasa. Everybody will do what fits in their eye as they want. When there is different opinions in a matter, you decide according to the majority of opinions. All, also the minority need to conduct themselves as such. Das is aber, but that is only the practical. Das is aber bloß an Ausweg benegele. This is just a way out. How do you do the two different opinions? So we all do one way. As der miut verbekt that the minority bends on their view, and they do as the majority, and they do the majority. In Zeir Seichel V'deya, bebeiten they need Zeir many, but in their intellect and in their opinion, they didn't change their view. They still have the same view. Anders is aber benegeya psak din fun Torah, but it's different when there is a ruling of Torah. Was is megalele the emes lamiti from the minyan that reveals the truth of that matter. Mitzad dem vados is the emes lamiti, because this is really the real truth. Was is mavriach min hakotza lakotza, which goes through from one extent to the next extent, from one extreme to the other canal. It is oisgalt in all the madreges, so therefore it makes sense. It fits in all levels. It makes no difference. Tzidar seichel is like in kavach chesed, whether the intellect goes in the line of kindness or the like in kavach gvura or the line of strictness. Umetun legt sich up wieder emes lamita. Every place it makes sense as is the real truth. The riber, and therefore, when one studies Torah, and he's taken through with the subjugation, accepting the yoke, was machtim farakelet, so that emes lamite from Torah makes him into a vessel for the true of Torah. Is when hert as the halacha is al pikloli haTorah nit vi zayin svara, when he hears that the law is, when it's according to the rules of Torah, not like his idea, nor vidideya chalek, but rather like the opinion that disagrees in him, is mitzad zayin bittel zum rotzin ha'elyon. So because of his subjugation to the will of above, makes no difference. Later, he puts himself into this idea with a new depth, with new effort, to the extent that even in his own mind, it fits to the ruling of the halacha. This is the chiddush, and this is dafke by the idea of Torah, which has the emes la'amite, which goes through an whole area. Das is oich der bir in the Chilik zwischen the drei Chadoshim. This is also the explanation in the difference of the 3 months. Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan. Chodesh Rishon, Sheni, and Shlishi. Nisan is Chodesh Rishon, Echad. This is one. Is the Chodesh for Yitzias Mitzrayim. That is the month of Yitzias Mitzrayim, was is gekumen in an Eifel von Nigla Aleyan, Melech Malcha Amloch HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'Golem. It came that the King of Kings revealed to them and he redeemed them. In ganzem milmaylo. That comes from above. Bebald as the Geula is gekumen. Since this redemption came, not from the Yidden's perspective, nor mitzad the Eibishter redeemed them. So to begin with, there were no differences of levels by the Yidden. The Yitzias Mitzrayim, Otarum Kinuman called Yisro Ke'echad, that Exodus to Yidden took out all Yidden as one. Der Inyan von Echad Achdus by Yitzias Mitzrayim, the one that unity by Yitzias Mitzrayim, hat sich herausgesagt, hein benegeya dem Eifena Yitzia Atzmo, both in the way that the Exodus took place, and hein benegeya dem Atzah v'dargi von Eden Beis Yitzia, and also with regards to the standing and the level of the Yidden during the Exodus. Number one, Aleph. Sei der zunächst bleiben sich von alle Yidden von ganz Eretz Mitzrayim, kein Ramses, both the collecting of all Yidden from all of the land of Egypt to the Ramses, and also their first journey, the Etzem Yitziyim and Mitzrayim, when they actually left Egypt, Ramses Sukoisa, is given in an open, it wasn't away from Eschem al country Mishorim. I carried you on the eagle's wing. It accomplished in an Nekuda von Zman, in a point of time, Shalomayla Mischalkus, beyond dividing, Kerevine, it was done in a blink of an eye. The Shokala immediately, as the Lashon is. Base, the Torah of Eden, Beizedi Tzias Mitzrayim, how is the described the Yidden when they went out of Egypt is Tzivois Hashem, the armies of Hashem. The Hauptzach und Yisoid von Atzova, what is the main aspect and the basis of an army is Kabbalah soil, is accepting the yoke. In welches is nitoken is chalkus zwischen ein ish sovereign atzveiten. There is no distinction between one army person and the other one. His chalkus is shaykh and seichel midas. Dividing applies to intellect and emotions. Was jeder einen versteht und fühlt anders von den zweiten, that everybody feels and understands it different than the other person. Over in Kabbalah soil, but when we talk about accepting the yoke, everybody is equal. Bald as the Yitzim Mitzrayim is gekommen milomailo. In an Eufen was genommen alle Eden beschoven. So since the Exodus of Egypt came from above in such a way that encompassed everybody equally, the Riberotzer by the Yitzia, that's why by this Exodus nicht gehört, it didn't feel these Chalkus from Eden, you didn't see a difference of Eden. Yud Beishvatim, 12 tribes, Kohanim, Levim, Yisrael, Yetzibay, there's no differences. Everybody together. Melachatchile came Milmaila. Nor the Inyan Hamagdom Kabbalah Soil Tzivas Hashem. What is the one that unites them? They were Tzivas Hashem, that's all what that. Aber Lidach Yisrael, on the other hand, is the Achdus blois benegeya dem Inyan HaKabbalah Shovas is verbunden mit der Asiyah. That unity is only accepting the yoke with what is tied to doing. Aber Eden b'mehusam b'seichel u'midas chulu, but Eden in their essence, seine verblieben in Amatze von Ischalkus, they remained in a situation of division. She's not as in the Matzah for Nigla Aleim Chulu. It's only that in that condition, in the situation in which it was revealed to them, haben sich die Chilukim nicht Nigla nicht angesehen. They weren't revealed. The Nigla was not. Nigla Aleim was Milamayla, but you didn't see the differences. Und der Rebbe steht dabei, by Yisro Lashon Rabbim Kenal Siv Gimel, but it's still Lashon Rabbim because they were different. But because of that Gilui, you didn't sense the differences. That's Nisan. Chodesh Iyar, which is Chodesh Hashem, is the Chodesh and Svira, is the month of counting, Sviras Omer. Was das weißt of the Raveda, that points to the service from Eden Bekoyach Atzmon that Yidden do with their own strength. And in them sein Eden Arabim. Over there's many. They tell sich bei from Golui in verschiedene Madreges. They openly are divided in different levels. Kol echad l'kinyonik and all, everybody according to their level. So that's the level of Iyar. And then kommt Chodesh Sivan, Chodesh HaShlishi. Then comes the month of Sivan, the third month. The Chodesh from Matan Torah, the month of the giving of the Torah. Was Torah vereinigt alle Iden in an Eufon Volevecha. Torah unites all Yidden to be with one heart. As need kukundikov di chiluki deyes from Yidden, notwithstanding the difference of opinions of Yidden. Afilu Torah musumach is even the arguments and discord macht Torah sholem. Torah makes peace between alle deyes achilkes, amongst all the differences, opinions that disagree. This is vert hushvu leiv echod hasholom amiti, that they're made into one heart. It brings a true shalom. Good base. Eine von der Heroes mikol hanal. One of the lessons of all the above. The Alter Rebbe is mevayed in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya as the Inyan von Avos Yisro, that the idea of loving a Yid, Arzayin L'Kol Nefesh Mi Yisrael, needs to be for every Jewish soul, the Migodel Vat Kotten, whether big or small. Because of the root of our soul in one Hashem is Kulam Masimis Av Echad L'Kulona. We all fit. There is one Father for all of us. Kem and Doch Ein Fregen. So somebody can ask, this would be okay, would fit if he had his dealings with the root of the neshama from the zweiten Yidden, from the other Yid. And then you can demand as a Zolhabun an Abetzim that you should have a love to the other person. Abbas Achim Mamish, a love of Mamish, like brother. However, when we're discussing about another Yid, was nit nori sein shodish hanishoma, by him nit made regular, not only is the root of his soul not shining openly, nor is in azamasa, but he's in a condition as the chumris aguf shaloi, that the materialism of his body, verstellt ganzen, not even the hanishoma totally obscures, blocks the light of the soul. Wie mochten bei ihm zu haben an Ave zu jenem in der Matze, wer er sitzt? How could you ask him to have a love to the other person in the situation is now? He's not by the Shedish of the Neshama. He is a materialistic person. How could you tell him to love somebody because of the Shedish of the Neshama? If them is the Hero, so now we have the lesson from Vayichan Shom, Yisro Megador. Over there, in our opposite the mountains, like one. Avul Shar Kol. All other campings were with arguments and discord. Their oivtu for Matan Torah is, what is the accomplishment of Matan Torah? As mehot dem koyach, that we have the power to mamshich zayin dem inyan ha'achdus, that we can draw down the concept of unity in the mokum ha'pirut v'ha'yitzchalkus, in the place of where there is separation and there is division. Was durch dem wird aufgetan, that accomplished through this, when you bring down the Achdus, noch a hechere Achdus, with the Achdus von Eden, even a greater unity than the unity of Eden, with such Sheresh Nafshem B'Hashem Echad, that is because of the source of the root Hashem Echad. Was darten sein Lieden Melchatchila in Zach. That's their one thing to begin with. But here is Bedugmas the Ma'ila for Shlishi Echad, the 3/1, that you take in the differences and still it's mavriach, and it comes through the love, even in the fact that there is a pirud in his chalkus, and yet there is the level of shalom and achdus. But mainly is adrab. So therefore, on the contrary, instead of thinking that you can't love the other person because you're not connected to the sheidish, it's adrab. The shtadlus, the meaning von achdus v'ahavas Yisro, the effort in the idea of uniting and loving a fellow Jew. To begin with, it needs to be with those Yidden, those Jews that find themselves standing in a situation of a degraded situation. They find themselves in a place of separation and very divided. Davke dort and shom, and Davke over there, in that level, Mamshach Zayin the Minyan Ha'achdus, to bring down the idea of unity, Bizmiz Over and Kishachad V'Levechad, till they become like one person with one heart. Durch der Ishtadlus in Abbas Yisrael, Ba'achdus Yisrael, through the effort in loving Yidden and the unity of Yidden, by Yichan, Loshen Yochid, by Yichan in a singular, Ubefrat an Achdus was is verbunden with Torah neged the Hora, especially with a unity which is connected with Torah, opposite the mountain. Oil sein euch durch them. You'll also impact this through this. Was jeder Yidzel haben an ois. Every Yid will have a letter in eine from the Sifrei Torah Haklolim, in one of the general Sefer Torahs, La'achet Kol Yisrael, which is uniting all Yidden. But Ozayin Da'achona Masimo Keli, that will be the fitting preparation and the vessel to the Torah Chadosh Itzi Teitzei, to the new Torah that will come out from me, Gilui Torose Mashiach, the revelation of the teaching of Mashiach, B'Geula Hamitis V'Hashlema, the true and complete redemption, Aidei Mashiach Tzidkenu, through our righteous Mashiach, B'Mheira, B'Yameinu Mamish, speedily in our days. This is Sichos Shabbos Parshas Bamidbar, Tovshin and Beis, and Shabbos Parshas Miketz, Tovshin Mem.